Yo, what's up? It's Serious Beats. I've been going on listening to podcasts for about 3 years, so I'm relatively new to the podcast game. I mainly listen to hip-hop/urban podcasts, so I'm going to give you a list of the 5 podcasts you should check out. They're becoming more popular in the independent and major scene, so a lot of your favorite artists have probably already done a podcast, so check it out. It's just something dope to listen to take a break from music. Alright, so at number 5, it's Tax Season. Tax Season is by Tax Stone, who's probably one of the most realest dudes in the podcast game. He doesn't really care about being politically correct, speaks his mind, he comes from the streets, so he brings that side to the podcast game. He sat down with Styles P, Combat Jack, Smoke DZA, Jack Thriller. The Nori episode is a classic, you gotta check that one out. And the hilarious Joe Budden versus Tax podcast.
Joe, you got the album coming out, correct? Huh? I'm asking you a question. What the fuck is wrong with you?
I'm almost befuddled. This is like...
What are you
I wish I
befuddled
could
about?
just watch you for a day.
Wow. I just asked you a question and you fucking talking. What is he talking about?
Are you gonna continue to scream in this
I'm asking you a question. What is wrong with you, son?
Are you gonna continue to scream in this
I'm asking you a question. What is wrong with you, son?
Okay, we should end this.
No, Joe, what projects do you have going on right now?
What the fuck is wrong with this nigga, son?
We should end this, though.
How do you speak to this dude, yo?
Nah, Tech, come
That's
on.
crazy, man.
You good, though?
I'm good. It's just this nigga right here. What the fuck is wrong with this dude? This nigga just, hey, yo, what you?
I mean, I guess y'all should have got to know each other a little bit before y'all came.
Why? I don't get to know nobody.
I know. All right, well, thank you guys.
God
Thank
bless.
you so much.
Have a good night.
God bless. Everybody have a good night.
You too. Have a good night.
God bless.
I'm surprised they didn't fight after the podcast. Overall, this podcast is dope, and I highly recommend you check it out. Also, this is just a disclaimer. This is just my unbiased opinion on Tax and Tax Season. At the time of this recording, there's some controversy with Troy Ave and Tax Stone and the situation at Irving Plaza and the shooting. I don't wish jail or death on anybody. This is just my unbiased opinion on Tax and the podcast. At the number 4 spot, we got Brilliant Idiots, Charlemagne and Andrew Schultz. Anything with Charlemagne involved is going to be funny and have some controversy tied to it with some headlines. Don't take this podcast too seriously. It can be racist, misogynistic. It's just their views, and their views on religion might differ from yours. It's just opinion at the end of the day, but I can't lie, the podcast is entertaining.
I haven't seen the right ass then.
So you've seen some dude's ass?
No, I haven't.
And
No,
then-
I have.
Whose ass did you see?
It is one dude I want to fucking ass.
Who?
It is.
No, all right,
It
go.
is.
This is good. Who?
Serena Williams. I want to fuck that guy, Serena Williams, and his ass so
Okay,
bad.
so you would fuck Serena Williams in the ass.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this. Real quick question. Do you think there are trannies that look more like a woman than Serena Williams does?
Without question.
There's over 100 episodes uploaded to their SoundCloud at the time of this recording, so there's a lot to listen to. Most episodes average to about an hour and 40 minutes, so there's a lot of content, and they do have guests. But on this podcast, it holds up with just Charlemagne and Andrew. Number 3, I'll name this podcast later, which was never named later because it was already named to begin with, hence the name is by Joe Budden, New Jersey MC. I was on Twitter when this podcast was announced and first started. It was just Joe Budden and Marissa Mendez, but a few episodes in, we were introduced to Rory, a good friend of Joe and Marissa. This is actually one of my favorite podcasts. It's the one I anticipate the most. Every Wednesday, they drop a new episode. What's crazy is they rarely have any guests on the podcast, which gets overlooked. And if you think about it, most podcasts, if not all of them, rely on guests and people who come on the podcast. Pause. I'll name this podcast later. 90% of the time, it's just Joe, Marissa, and Rory. It's funny as fuck. I highly recommend you check this podcast out. It ranks number 3, even though it's my favorite. Number 2, Drink Champs. Nori and DJ EFN. They came into the podcast game going for the kill. I would rank this podcast number 1, but there's only 13 episodes at the time of this recording, which says a lot because everyone on this list has 50 plus episodes. What ranks Drink Champs so high is not only the entertainment value, but the hip-hop legends that Nori has brought onto each episode. Just the first 3 episodes alone are crazy. Fat Joe, which is one of my favorite episodes because of the funny, interesting stories they told. Listen to it and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Jadakiss and Ja Rule on the 2nd episode.
I heard Styles say one day that Tyson was fucking with Eve. Like he was messing with her, and y'all thought y'all was gonna have to get it in on Tyson.
Yo, how does
He
this
spoke
know
solely.
all the stories?
He spoke for himself because I wasn't touching Mike. Mike told Eve, I fucked the shit out of you. Me personally, I was on the floor.
You went too fast.
I couldn't.
Where is this at?
Yeah, I love Mike.
We were somewhere in Vegas. It was either Vegas or L.A.
And now y'all with Eve. Y'all with Eve.
This when Mike
it's just
was
y'all
on
and Eve, or y'all got like
is us and
other
Eve.
niggas?
The general and them might have been there somewhere, but we on the red carpet.
Okay, so only
Locks,
the
Eve,
artists.
yeah.
Only the artists. Okay.
All I heard was Mike say, I fucked the shit out of you, Eve.
To Eve.
Me. Holy, what the You know what I'm saying? Now, a regular Joe Schmo, his head would have been off.
Right, but it's tight.
Mike, Eve, you gotta hold that.
You gotta hold that.
You gotta hold that. Ain't that? We know Mike a little crazy. You gotta hold that.
Now some niggas gotta get the OG pass. That's a fact.
Eve, my nigga, man. I fucks with Eve.
And DMX, who hasn't done a podcast with anyone else, gives you an interesting and emotional episode.
One thing I respect about Puff, one thing I respect about him and real shit, is that at least he told me to my face what he felt. And when D told Puff, he said, yo, if you like the Lox, you're gonna love X. And I spit or whatever, and he was like, his voice is too rough, he's not marketable. Didn't like it, but I had to respect it.
He fucked up. Let's make some noise from Puff fucking up.
Hold up. He came right behind and tried to clean up. So maybe 3 weeks later, when he found out I was getting signed for Def Jam, he was like, yo, I'll lace your pockets. I'll double what they gave you and lace your pockets. I'm like, nah, homie. Because if you didn't see the beast that I was
What point
then,
did he tell you that? What point?
I told you, like maybe 3 weeks after I got signed to Def Jam. He was like, yo, I'll lace your pockets. I'll double what they gave you and lace your pockets. I'm like, nah, I'm cool.
So it's a legendary story.
You didn't know. I said, but I respect that about Puff.
Right.
I mean, because a lot of motherfuckers, they see you on a wild goose. I mean, they won't tell you. They're like, oh, call me later.
Yeah, industry talk.
I respect the fact that he told me to my face. He said, you know what, your voice is too rough and you're not marketable. So at least he was willing to, in my mind, what I think he's saying is, work on this.
You gotta listen to these 3 and go from there. It's just legendary. I won't be surprised if Nori gets Jay-Z and Nas to sit down for an episode. And at number 1, Combat Jack, also known as Reggie Osei, is the host of Combat Jack. This podcast ranked number 1 for me because of all the legendary stories he's brought us, the consistency and authenticity you get from listening. I feel like I can tell who takes the podcast work seriously. Some people are boring and don't ask the right questions. Combat Jack, on the other hand, asks the questions you would ask your favorite artists and get them to tell stories you probably wouldn't have heard anywhere else. I first started watching and listening to Combat Jack when he had his own web show on Complex back in 2013. I was hooked instantly. I started listening to the podcast from that point on. There's over 133 episodes on the Combat Jack Show SoundCloud, so you have a lot of content to listen through if you haven't already. Everyone from Dame Dash, J. Cole, Angie Martinez, Drew Ha and Sean P, Russell Simmons, the legendary episode with Lisa Rios, Big Pun's wife, and his son Chris Rivers, Young Guru, Raekwon, Big Crit, Ninth Wonder, Common, Pete Rock, Pharoah Monch, Styles P, and even Drink Champ Nori. The list goes on. There's so many episodes. If you want to listen to the podcast and don't know where to start, Combat Jack is definitely a good place to start. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, comment, share. Also, if you like the beats playing in the background, check out ProducedBySirius.com.
ProducedBySirius.com